What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs Cast Show. Big reminder, find us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to find your watch party. And also make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and day of coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. All right, after a couple year hiatus, we are back, and I'm here with my birthday twin, Dan Beatty, Philly fan, Philly born and raised, and we're here to talk about the Super Bowl that absolutely nobody outside of Kansas City and Philadelphia wants. And cheers, everybody! I hope you're really enjoying this. And embrace the horror because this is most likely not going to be the last one. And I think we might be starting a tradition here with a couple of powerhouse teams that are going to be dominating their conferences. So,
I don't know why, Josh, people are saying this isn't the Super Bowl that people wanted because I have to say, like going into this, and we'll get into it, but I think some of the storylines going into this
oh yeah,
are really compelling. And I just think the backdrop of this game is pretty tasty, as they say, pretty
hmm
tasty.
I agree. I agree. So let's start getting into those storylines. I think we can kind of frame this before we get into our reasons for winning. And before we got started, you had some pretty interesting parallels to a season that's about 30 years ago. So go into what you're seeing from the Eagles' standpoint.
Yeah, so a big kind of talking point, really all season for the Eagles has been what an incredible offseason the Eagles had with Howie Roseman once again being the mad genius that he is. And there have been a few articles that have recently been released, basically talking through how this was one of the greatest off seasons in NFL history. And the comparison that's used is the 1994 San Francisco 49ers, which coincidentally, we're also trying to keep a juggernaut from three-peating the Dallas Cowboys from 92 and 93.
Mhm.
And they wound up signing three Hall of Famers, including, I don't know if you heard of the guy, Deion Sanders.
Yeah, Coach
Um,
Prime. There you
yeah.
go.
They had a few other key offseason acquisitions and traded up in the draft to select future Hall of Famer Bryant Young. And you look at the Eagles and what they were able to do in the offseason, the draft they had where they got Quinyon Mitchell at cornerback and Cooper DeJean, also known as Quintanamo Bay and Cooper DeJean, if you know your Eagle language or Philadelphia language. Getting Mekhi Becton, monster offensive lineman, weighs about 370 pounds. You guys are going to have to deal with that guy. Makes Lane Johnson look small. You got Zach Bond, who first team All Pro at linebacker. That was considered one of the biggest weaknesses of the Eagles. And what was the other guy? Oh yeah, Saquon Barkley, hot diggity dog. You guys aren't facing Miles Sanders this time around.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so talking about some of the storylines, that's interesting. I never really I can't say that made it that far out of Philly. So I
Yeah.
knew they had a good offseason, but really the story's been Saquon Barkley. And that story was definitely a good move for the Eagles, but what the hell is wrong with the Giants? I mean, let's just take a moment and kind of smack that organization around. How do you let that happen? And then you let that happen on camera with Hard Knocks,
Yeah.
and you have the owner sitting there saying, "I'm going to be really upset if Saquon Barkley goes off." I mean, is there a worse possible outcome for the Giants?
Well, you know the old saying, don't put it in writing. Well, don't put it on HBO, I think would
Exactly.
probably be a good follow-up to that. The thing with Saquon and the challenge with kind of evaluating how this all went down is the Giants aren't a good team,
No,
right? Obviously, they're just not. And Saquon would not be having the season that he had just had and is
no, that's
hopefully going
true.
to continue to have with that team. That offensive line isn't good at all. He was running into a brick wall every play. I saw this incredible stat where he had one other Pro Bowler on offense the entire time he was with the Giants. One player, and it was a tight end who
Yeah,
had kind of a middling season. So no Pro Bowl offensive linemen, no Pro Bowl wide receivers, certainly no Pro Bowl quarterback. I mean,
yeah,
Danny
we got a
Danny
Ryan,
Nichols, as
Ryan
I
in the
like to
draft.
call
Yeah,
him, wasn't going to make anything.
yep.
I mean, look, you have the devaluation of the running back, a bad team. I don't really know what they were thinking, but it worked out for us. And having honest conversations with Giants fans, I mean, they certainly don't want the Eagles to win a Super Bowl and are definitely rooting against us, but they're still kind of in their heart of hearts rooting for Saquon.
Yeah, so that's interesting. New York is actually rooting for Kansas City. Is that the other place in the country that's actually rooting for the Chiefs? Because I don't think anybody else is. And uh, my
Well,
favorite
I mean,
graphics.
Dallas certainly is not rooting for Philadelphia. And
Yeah, yeah. But one of my favorite graphics, and I always like this, whenever two teams I can't stand, I always root for a comet to hit the stadium. Not one that actually kills anybody. I don't want people to die over this. This is sports. None of this is serious. But if there's a comet that can make both teams take a loss, I think that's everybody's favorite team in this one.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
maybe a 5%, 90 for the comet. I think the comet's where everybody's at.
Well, we've all seen the map where it's like the parts of the country that are rooting for the Eagles, the Chiefs, and
Yeah, yeah,
the Comet, right?
yeah, yeah.
The Comet's clearly taken over the country.
Yeah, any map that doesn't have the comet taking over the country is a lie. I think that's just true. And I'm really relishing how much people don't want to see the Super Bowl. I remember seeing a graphic halfway through the season and it had a Bills and Lions logo. It's like it's a Super Bowl we all want. And then it had the Chiefs and Eagles. It's like this is a Super Bowl we're going to end up getting. And that's always been the case. I think that's been a somewhat foregone conclusion since, at least week 8. At least
Well,
week.
I feel a little bit for the Lions.
Sure.
They certainly, I mean, the NFL is such a crapshoot when it comes to injuries.
Mhm.
Um, any given game, you can lose a key player, obviously, and they
Yeah.
lost a lot of them on defense. Um, the Bills, look, they're the bridesmaid, unfortunately for them. I listened to a pretty interesting breakdown of them where they're a little small, and you see that in plays where like they try to do the tush push against the Chiefs,
Yeah.
and whether or not they made that, that'll be one of the questions of all time. But the book says they did not, and they don't get that push. And they what do they need to do to retool in the off season to have that Eagles off season? They don't have an alpha wide receiver one. They don't have a big offensive line. I mean, it is what it is. There's a reason why the Chiefs are in the game.
Well, that fourth down tush push. So I've thought about that play a lot. The whole replay, it reminds me. I'm going to go really way back. So I lived in Denver for a couple of years. The 2007 Colorado Rockies. So they played. It was game 163. They had to play a tiebreaker with the Padres, and one of the most controversial calls. I would press you to find something that had a more controversial video. It's Matt Holliday sliding into home plate, and Padres fans are going to die believing he was out, but he was called safe, and that's what the book said. And the Rockies went and played in the World Series. I looked at that video a lot of the same, and my biggest question for the Bills is why when James Cook was running at will, did you not hand the ball off to him if you want to go up the middle? I looked at that whole thing. It's like this is such a loser mentality that you're trying to do a play that only one team makes work, which is the Philly tush push. And that's just all you're trying to do is get that 1 yard. Why are you not trying for making this not a question at all? And a play that I thought of immediately. So the 2021 season, the Chiefs played the Browns and Mahomes sat down and Chad Henne ended the game and it was 4th and 1 with a minute 14 left and they get to kneel the ball. So they have Chad Henne roll out to the right and throw an out to Tyreek Hill. You get 5 yards. There's no controversy there. You're not reviewing that. It's just he's in. The Bills had all the tools. I think the Bills actually had the offseason that they needed to win that game. But it came down to 2 4th down plays. They were not ready for that pressure on the last play, and Dalton
They sure were
Kincaid
not. That was a
first.
brilliant call by Spags.
Exactly,
Brilliant
exactly,
call.
exactly. So that was a great call by Spags. And
I
if
don't know how he got that ball out. how Josh got the ball out. I mean, that was
because
it was a
Josh Allen's a
catchable ball.
stud.
That's unbelievable.
Exactly. But a little better coaching
Yeah,
on the Bills
yeah.
side, he actually finds it to James Cook on the left side of the field in the flat. He chucks the ball up. Nobody was over there. I mean, Spags sold out, but it's just the Chiefs are on that much of a different level. The Bills have all the tools except winning the couple of key moments. And blame the rest if you want. They lost two key moments. And
Well, I mean I'm not blaming the refs in this instance.
no, and I know,
I
I know you're not.
we can always talk about refs and Chiefs, but I mean the fact of the matter is that whether or not there are times where it seems like the scales of officiating tilt a little bit towards the
Sure.
Chiefs. That's what happens when you win all the time. The example
Exactly.
I keep hearing is an ace pitcher, right? Where if
Mhm.
you're an ace pitcher and you're pounding the strike zone and you get a ball that's an inch or two off the zone, maybe you get that strike. You might often where the guy who can't find the strike zone doesn't. And that's kind of where the Chiefs are. And I mean, let's be real, the NFL does like the golden boy, but and protects the investment.
Yeah.
But the James Cook angle, I absolutely 100% agree with. There was a story going into this where the Chiefs haven't given up, I believe it's a 100-yard rusher all season,
They did not to a running back. They did do a
to a running back.
quarterback in week one, and
Yeah,
it was Lamar Jackson.
right to Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
So, but Cook was gashing you guys,
Yeah.
gashing you. And I think he
Yeah.
only wound up with something like 86 yards. And
Yeah.
that to me is not great coaching, not great play calling. I mean, if you have something that's working well and then you go away from it, why do you do that? They should make the Chiefs stop you before going away from it, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, before we get into our reasons, I want to bring up one other off-season point. I was listening to the radio this morning, and Mel Kiper was on ESPN. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why we're talking about the draft the couple days before the Super Bowl, but whatever. I also think people get bored during a 2 week period of time, and you have to find things to talk about. Which is why I think you ended up with Bill Belichick talking about renaming the Lombardi Trophy after Tom Brady. I mean, that's people being bored.
Yeah.
But but anyway, so Mel Kiper was talking about the 2016 Chiefs draft. They tried to trade up for Paxton Lynch. And I remember this, but I don't remember all the details, as vividly because, time has gone by and stuff. They tried to trade up for Paxton Lynch, and I remember being upset with the group of people I was watching the draft with, especially when Denver picked him up. That was the worst possible scenario. It's like the Cowboys jumping in front of the Eagles to get somebody. You just don't want to see it ever.
CeeDee Lamb, they did it with CeeDee Lamb.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs ended up trading down into the second round and picked up a guy named Chris Jones. And then not having,
Tuesday?
yeah, exactly, Chris Jones. Yeah. And then the next year, since they didn't have their quarterback, they traded up to pick a guy named Patrick Lavon Mahomes the second, whoever he is. So, major, major, major. I don't know that this is the Elite 94 offseason comparison like you're talking about, but I'd press you to find a crazier what if game than, what if Paxton Lynch ended up on the Chiefs? Like, good God, where are we at?
I mean, that's tremendous, right?
Yeah.
The draft, it's incredible how compelling the NFL draft is. It really is. And how exciting it is. And you have guys on your board that you're just begging to drop. You have guys that you really want your team to get, and then some other team gets them and they wind up being a wash or they wind up being amazing. I mean, the most recent example of that for the Eagles is Jefferson, where the entire city wanted the Eagles to draft Jefferson, and instead they drafted oh my God, Aguilar, and it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. And it is what it is. But I'm sorry, not Aguilar, Jalen Rager.
Yeah.
Aguilar
Rager.
was another
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
one.
I
Yeah,
knew who you were
yeah,
talking about. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Rager.
I was like, wait a second, I got that wrong. Yeah,
Did the
Rager.
Eagles draft Aguilar? Or did they bring him in?
No, they drafted him too. He was a first round pick.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he wound up having a big Super Bowl for us and a pretty decent 2017 season.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the big one on the flip side for us was last year where we were able to snag Jalen Carter.
Yup.
And I mean, you talk about your Chris Jones comp. There's a real argument to be had on who's the best defensive lineman going into the Super Bowl because Jalen Carter is going to be a problem for you guys.
Yeah,
especially with the shuffling that you guys have. And we'll talk about that a bit more. But he
sure.
was the guy that was supposed to go number one overall, and then had some
Hmm.
off the field issues after winning the national championship, and all of a sudden he started dropping. And I was in the position where it's like I wanted, so we had another first round pick that draft and wound up getting Nolan Smith, another Bulldog. Um, and I wanted them to package that first round pick to move up to get Jalen Carter. And we wound up only having to, I think, move a fourth round pick, I believe it was, because we had the 10th
Yeah, I think
pick.
you had to move up one
Yeah,
spot,
we
right?
moved up one spot from 10 to 9 to get Jalen. And the rest is history. And we wound up getting Nolan Smith anyway, who's going to be another problem for you guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. I think we both prepared three reasons why we think our team's going to win. So I will give you the honor of going first. What are your three reasons why you see an Eagles victory this Sunday?
Well, there's no reason. The first reason is there's a reason no team has ever three-peated, right? You guys are facing history, and history is very hard to defeat. So good luck, really hard to keep getting back there. Um, and kind of following along with that, I think that, if you look at this roster compared to 2022, both the Chiefs and the Eagles, um, I think the Chiefs are a little bit worse and the Eagles are a fair bit better. Across the board, you're going to see qualitative advantages at almost every, maybe not every single position, but certainly every unit. It's just going to be a challenge. We have a better team than you. Now, you guys have Patrick Mahomes, you guys have the coaching, but I just think across the board, we are superior in every unit. And finally, I think the Eagles have smartly zigged where the league has zagged. It's a passing league now. Um, and the Eagles were really kind of at the vanguard of doing that with Andy Reid back in the 90s and aughts of kind of getting away from the ground and pound offense and really opening it up in the air. But I think that's led to an overcorrection. And you see a lot of teams now really struggling to defend the run because they've gotten smaller and faster and they're geared around airing the ball out and defending against that. And a team like the Eagles, which has really one of the best offensive lines probably in the history of football, certainly the best offensive line right now, and one of the largest ever, you're going to have a really hard time holding up against that much beef. And by the way, maybe certainly the best running back in the league right now, one of the best ever, I think, would be the conversation if he was playing with a good team his entire career. Saquon Barkley is going to be a problem.
All right, so I'm gonna go straight off on your commentary. I agree. The Eagles did zig when the league zagged, and a lot of teams are not good at stopping the run. However, the Chiefs are one of them that are. The Chiefs have noticed that, and you made the point about coaching, and I think that's really it. I mean, the Chiefs made it to the Super Bowl. The biggest play of that game was Steve Spagnuolo saving a defensive look for Josh Allen over the course of two games until there's 3 minutes left in a game. So as we mentioned before, the Chiefs don't allow 100-yard rushing running backs, and I don't think this game's going to be any different. It's Saquon Barkley. He's great. I don't care who's in the backfield. The Chiefs defense is up to that task. They're built for this. And if you look at the last handful of games, we talked about how they got the Bills off of the rushing attack, even though James Cook probably could have done something. Go back to the AFC Championship last year. They got their Ravens to quit doing that. The Chiefs just do that. So the history, I don't think that the moment's too big for the Chiefs to three-peat, but the moment always ends up being too big for their opposing coach to continue the run. The Chiefs get in their head. So we're not going to get a 100-yard rushing day from Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to get into the 80s, similar to James Cook, but I don't think he's going to get to 100. And stopping Barkley turns this into a passing game, which does favor the Chiefs. The two best games that I've watched Jalen Hurts throw the football were the last Super Bowl and the game against the Commanders. So what I think makes this game different is that last Super Bowl 57, that Chiefs defense was, I want to say, the youngest defense in history to make a Super Bowl. They were incredibly young. So we have 2 years of history with those guys. That's 2 more years of Trent McDuffie being an all pro, whether he actually gets it or not. The dude didn't make a Pro Bowl because they don't want to put any Chiefs players in the Pro Bowl. That's how tired the world is of him. McDuffie was still the second team all pro. So he's better. The secondary is better, and the Washington Commanders defense is trash. So if this turns into a game where Hurts has to win throwing the ball, it's going to be a serious problem for the Eagles. And my third point is the best defender on the field still is Chris Jones. Jalen Carter's
Debatable.
coming for him.
It's debatable.
He's coming for him, but Chris Jones is still the guy. So I do think this is going to be a very tight game. I'm not expecting this to be the barn burner of scoring as last time. I do think that the defense is going to do more than they did in Super Bowl 57 because that vaunted pass rush, I don't think got Mahomes near as much as they needed to, and apparently his ankles are made out of rubber and he can just tape it up and
I
keep
thought the
going,
game was
which was
over.
insane. Which was
I
insane.
mean, I was sitting in St. Lucia for Mary Margaret's. We went with some friends to celebrate Mary Margaret's 40th birthday. We were in like the clubhouse. They were having a Super Bowl party. I
Yeah,
had this whole crowd going crazy, and you see that ankle bend not the way it's supposed to at the end of the first half, going in up by 10. I'm like, this game's about to get ugly.
and you sent me a text about that, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have anything to say back to this. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I replied back that I agree with you that that looks bad.
Yeah, did not look good. But Mahomes is Mahomes, and whatever, voodoo magic they put on that ankle worked,
Yeah,
and it's held up. Yeah, I mean, to be frank, I obviously do not think the moment is too big for the Chiefs.
yeah,
Um, this is a team that has shown time and time and time and time and time again the
yeah, yeah,
ability to make the play when you need to. I mean, this season is a perfect example of that, where blocked field goals, the perfect timed um, blitz, picking up the third down when you needed to be picked up, or the fourth down.
yeah.
I just think this team just isn't as good as it's been in the past few years. And I think this Eagles team is a bully, and the Chiefs might just not have the personnel to hold up. But we'll see. And I guarantee you, Saquon's getting over 100 yards. Like that is not that is 100% happening because I don't see the Chiefs blowing us away. Right? It's not going to be a
They're
case where I mean they haven't done it all year. It's been a bunch of one possession games and comebacks, and they just don't have the offensive power to really, boat race us. So we'll see how it goes. What's the vibe? What's the what's the radio saying? What are you hearing from the fans? What's the vibe going into it?
So from the Chiefs fans, I think that there's a substantial amount of cautious optimism, which has been the primary part of the season. So
Hmm.
I'll tell you, I sit in the same. I don't know if you watch Fox Sports and Nick Wright. He's the Chiefs homer. I can imagine anybody that isn't a Chiefs fan thinking it's the worst show on TV, but I love it. And he's the guy. He sat the entire season and been like, never a doubt, the entire regular season has been a practice. The real season started with the game against Buffalo, and I've aligned that way. I really have. So I do a weekly column with a group of other people. There are some guys in our group that have been, calling for losses the entire season, and I've been calling for wins. So I'm not terribly surprised, but I would say that the Eagles are probably the team that's giving everybody the most pause, expecting the best game. I think that there's a general belief that this is the best Super Bowl among the football type of people. But the vibe around Chiefs fans, I think, is they expect this three-peat to get done, just in general.
Yeah, so I think that the Commanders game really kind of alleviated a lot of concerns going into the Super Bowl,
Sure.
or where Jalen, certainly statistically speaking, not wins record, but statistically speaking, has not had a particularly robust year,
Hmm.
which is a bit concerning considering the weapons that he has,
Yeah.
right? Um, but see, and then he got injured towards the end of the year, had a concussion, missed a few games. Then there was the snowball against the Rams.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, even against the Packers, he looked okay, not great. Certainly there was some rust. Snowball, still again, same thing, although there were some drop passes there. Seeing him against the Commanders,
Yeah.
you
That was a
really see
great
what
game.
that offense can do when it's firing on all cylinders, right? Where it's a balanced attack, where Jalen is throwing the ball with authority. AJ and Devontae are catching the ball. Dallas Goddard is, I think, a very undervalued weapon, and him being healthy does a lot for this offense, both not just with the passing game, but also run blocking. Very important. He's a tremendous run blocker. And I think that going into this, the Eagles fans think that if the Eagles play their A game versus the Chiefs playing their A game, it's an Eagles win.
Sure.
That's the
Okay.
feeling going into it, and
Mhm.
we'll see what happens.
So I have two more questions. Well, we're talking about vibes. I see all the stuff about Sirianni and Jalen Hurts might not like each other. AJ Brown might not like Jalen Hurts. That's why he's sitting reading on the sideline and stuff like that. What do people in Philly say about those two things? And I'll tell you what I personally think about it after you tell me that.
I mean, I think it's a bit overblown, obviously. I think, as far as Sirianni goes, you hear Jalen making jokes about the straight jacket, letting him
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of the straight jacket. I think that that was kind of tongue in cheek and showing a bit of levity. And I think that the team itself, a lot of people have been critical. I've been amongst them of Sirianni. Um, maybe he's not the smartest X's and O's coach out there, which is, you got Andy, who's clearly a football genius,
yeah.
and Sirianni, maybe he's not. Maybe, I don't know. But I think what he does have is a tremendous amount of emotional IQ. And you see that with guys. I mean, you hear stories about Sirianni leaving letters in people's bags, kind of pumping them up and getting them in the right frame of mind. And maybe this is a team, it's got a lot of alphas on it, a lot of egos. And maybe he's that guy that maybe he's not the best X's and O's guy, but he's the guy that can kind of navigate this team and get the performance that you need out of him. Because I'll tell you what, this team with this roster, it doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to have the fanciest play calls, the most complicated offense, the most complicated defense. It just needs to play their brand of football. And, talent wise, they're better than anybody. They just are.
So he's a Dan
Um,
Campbell type.
yeah,
He's a
he is.
Dan
He is a
Campbell
Dan
type.
Campbell type.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And the AJ thing, I mean, AJ and Jalen go back years. You know how wide receivers are. They
Yeah,
got
yeah.
egos. They want to get fed the ball. Inner excellence on the sidelines. Maybe that is actually something that
But
he
how
gets
about the
him going.
payday that author got
Oh yeah,
after
big
that?
tape.
I mean, the
Number
dude
one on
goes like,
Amazon. Number one on Amazon.
yeah,
I think everybody is going into this game with the goal of winning the game.
sure.
That's where it's at, and I think they know that they've got the team to do it. And they're going up against a team that's going to put up a fight. So they
Yeah.
better bring their A game.
So I saw, God, I don't remember where I saw this. It was I think it was a talk radio show, but they were talking about the Sirianni and just the dynamic with everybody. And it's like, everybody thinks that the Eagles aren't okay because they look like they're always squabbling, but have you ever just known some East Coast, Northeast family where you go to their house on Thanksgiving and they're sitting and yelling at each other the entire time, but you can tell they're a really close family? And I think I subscribe to that. That is what the Eagles look like. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You have a lot of alphas, you have to manage a lot of emotions and everything. That seems to fit. That's my kind of outsider's point of view, is that they just seem like that fired up, loud family that'll, go to the mat for each other and they die for each other, but they'll also yell at each other in public. and
So did you
it's
hear the
amusing.
story? Are you familiar with kind of what went down in the Commanders game with the injuries at center?
Huh?
So Cam Jurgens has been he was the anointed heir apparent for Kelsey.
Jessica Kelsey, yeah.
Um, was basically drafted because Kelsey told the Eagles to draft Cam Jurgens, and then last year played guard next to Kelsey. Kind of got like that really good academy of Kelsey and Stoutland. Um, but he got injured during the Rams game and his back was not looking good, right? So Dickerson, who's the all-world right guard, and was some would say the top-rated center prospect coming into the draft, and he was drafted out of Alabama.
Hmm.
He but has not played a single snap at center all season. Shifted over and played center. He started at center against against the Rams. Sorry, against the Commanders. And he struggled through it. He had to he might have missed some protections, but he's for the most part quite good. And then he hurt his knee, and Cam Jurgens, who was not supposed to play, was listed as doubtful. I mean, out doubtful, and then questionable was the emergency center, and he came back and replaced Dickerson at center and played the rest of the game. And I saw the interview of Cam doing after the game, and I mean the guy was in tears
Yeah.
about what the win, them having each other's back. I'm sure quite a bit of pain, and I absolutely agree with you that I think these guys really are there for each other, and they're going into this as like kind of a band of brothers type of mentality.
Yeah, that line shifting, that it's like Joe Thuney playing. He's our left
Yeah, you
tackle.
guys, yeah, I've
He's
seen
our
that. Yeah.
all-world left guard, and he's playing tackle because that's where he needs to be. But yeah, this is yeah, it's gonna be a great game. I one more question for you. Chip Kelly, is he an old friend or is he somebody that happened and you're glad he's gone? And the reason I ask that is he's going back to be the Raiders offensive coordinator, and I could never really get a read on what Philly actually thought of that guy.
Philly hates him.
Okay, fair enough.
They hate him. They despise him with every, well, we do. We despise him with every fiber of our being. Good luck, Raiders. You guys are getting a toxic egomaniac who will probably burn your franchise to the ground.
That is
Good luck.
great. I love hearing that.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that you said that. It couldn't happen to a better group of people.
yeah. Stupid, golf visor that he wears all the time. Ugh.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, okay. So you don't think he's going to get along with Pete Carroll at all?
Oh no, no. Good luck with that. Have fun.
Yeah, you want to talk?
What he'll want to do is he'll start undermining Pete Carroll immediately and try to supplant him. And he always does like the Game of Thrones type of thing. And he's
Okay, well, in that
yeah,
case, I really hope Russell Wilson ends up out there too.
yeah. There you go.
Let's really bring the circus to town. All right, well, that's it. What's your score prediction?
I'm gonna go with 27-17 Birds.
27-17. All right. I'm going 28-17 Chiefs.
No, well there you go.
There you go.
Beautiful. Well, good
All right.
luck to you guys. Not really, and go Birds.
Absolute same. I'm sure I'll be texting with you this Sunday, and nice to see you again. And
Great catching up, man.
yeah, have a good one.
Do it again next year.
Yes, sir.